So John Jones is in the news drunk again, right? And there's a lot of indications that can tell you how he's going to perform probably sometime down in the future. Now, not totally indicative of how he may do against Tom Aspinall, because I can tell you right now, even with the declining, even with the digression and things of that nature, it doesn't change how he's going to do against somebody that he is already predispositioned to beat, right? So in other words, it may not catch up to him now, but it's going to catch up to him later, and that can tell you that the Tom Aspinall fight is just going to be his last one. And again, this is sort of part of his spontaneous nature, right? When you saw him open up a flying knee against Shogun Rua back in 2011, right, becoming the youngest light heavyweight champion of UFC's history. In fact, the youngest champion in its entire history of the league. But nonetheless, right, I think it's a telltale sign of how his post-fight career is going to end. Again, spontaneous, great for a certain part of your career, but it's going to lend itself a lot of mental health issues later down the road, and you see that right now. Again, spontaneous, not the worst thing in the world to have, but it has its consequences. Look at this, like this cat right here. This is spontaneous, out of nowhere. This cat just shows up while I'm sitting here having coffee. Now that's spontaneous by nature, right? Those are the positive things that come out of spontaneousness. But this, there's a lot of deadly consequences with this. There's just a lot of deadly consequences with having an alcohol habit. And it's not going to help him in the long run. Certainly, it's helped him with a lot of his fights somewhere down the road with Teixeira, with Rampage, with Lyoto Machida, also with OSP. Although that one was a little bit questionable, because that was when he was coming off of the little steroid scandal, right? When they had to reverse the decision that they had against Daniel Cormier, which, by the way, he scored a knockout in that one, and they had to reverse that into a no contest. So you looked at that fight, he looked kind of suspect, didn't look like himself, maybe was a little bit attentive, but at the same time, I think a lot of that is just indicative of his performance outside of juice. So here's the thing that you got to understand, right? Will this affect how he's going to do in a fight in any kind of way? Maybe. But I got to tell you, one of the things that I like to talk about is something beyond fighting, something beyond the understanding of just this competition and the stats and the accolades and the idea of who is the icon and who is not, who is the face of the UFC and who is not, and this and that, right? Who is the best heavyweight of all time? It goes beyond that. But I gotta tell you, I think that the real story is not so much of his fight career, but so much of what happens afterwards. And that right there is one of those ESPN 30 for 30 documentaries that gets really dark. And you may see that in the future. But again, sometimes spontaneousness has its benefits, but then sometimes it has its drawbacks. It has its blessings, and then it has its own disaster that comes with it. That's all that I really have for this particular story that needed to be said. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope that you learned a valuable life lesson in this monologue that I just did reacting to this news. I'll see you in the next content, inshallah.